Hello and welcome to a new episode of Adobe Creative Cloud TV. My name is Terry White, and in this episode I get to do the most requested video I've been getting for an entire year, if not longer. A year ago, around the May timeframe, I did a video on how to get started with Premiere Pro. And for those of you who follow me, most of my tutorials are around design, photography, and even a little bit of web design with Adobe Muse. So I really don't spend a lot of time showing the video products in Creative Cloud, but I've used them over the years, and of course my followers just beg me and beg me and beg me to do more on video. So in this case, we're going to tackle that one most requested video that I get all the time, and that is how to get started with Adobe After Effects CC, the 10 things beginners want to know how to do. Now, of course, this isn't aimed at video pros. If you are already an After Effects professional, this is not for you. This is for someone who's just getting started, maybe never touched the application or opened it. They were intimidated and closed it, and they just kind of want to get a little jump start or kickstart on how to get going with After Effects. So that's what this is for. So without further ado, let's jump right in. I've launched the latest version of After Effects CC. I've got it open with an untitled project, and I'm just going to walk you quickly around the interface before we start actually creating things. Now on the left-hand side, you have your project window. This is where all the things that you will import will show up here, or the things you will build or draw. The composition window is sort of like where your video will be, your stage, your animation, where the things will be that you're working on, the visual showing of it. And then over on the right-hand side, you have various panels showing you the info, the audio, the preview panel, which is very important, the effects panel for finding your effects and applying them. And then down below, you have sort of what I like to refer to as the layers panel if you're used to Photoshop. But this is where you will do all your layering of effects and see how your compositions are built. So this is really your composition timeline window, or again, just think of it, if you're brand new, think of it as your layers panel in Photoshop, and that will help you out quite a bit. Now, speaking of After Effects in general, what is it? Well, After Effects is a 2D compositing tool with some 3D capabilities. So what that really means is I can take any object, bring it in, whether it's from Photoshop, video, Illustrator, whatever, and animate it over time. And just about every property you can imagine can be animated over time. I used to refer to After Effects as Photoshop over time, but then Photoshop got its own timeline and the ability to edit video as well. So I don't like to make that distinction as much, but just think of this as being as creative as you can be with Photoshop, but you could do all of those things now with moving objects or things that happen over time. So again, let's go ahead and start. The first thing we want to do is have a new composition. So a composition is a timeline or a sequence in Premiere Pro. It would be the thing where you're building things onto. So right now I can't build anything because I don't have a new composition yet. So we're just going to go to Composition, New Composition, and it's going to ask me things about my composition. What size do you want it to be? How long do you want it to be? In this case, it's going to be 3 seconds. So let's change that to be 30 seconds. And what size do you want it to be? And right now I've just got it set up using the HDTV preset. So it's going to be 1920 by 1080 at 2997 frames per second. And it's going to be 30 seconds long. And I can even choose a background color. So we'll leave it on black. We'll just click OK. And there's my new composition. Now, of course, I can scroll. I'm using the scroll button on my mouse to make that window bigger just by zooming in. I'm not changing the size of the composition, it's just zooming. And of course now I've got my stage, I can put anything on that stage, I've got my timeline, I can animate anything over time. So we're going to do the thing that everyone always does, and that is animate some generic object just so you can see what animation does or how it works. So I'm going to not deviate from history, let's do the same thing. You have some shape and masking tools here. So for example, I can click the rectangle tool and I can, there we go. I can click the We've got some shape and masking tools. I can click the rectangle tool. I can draw a rectangle. I can hold it down. I can get a rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, and star. So the same kind of drawing tools you're used to in just about all your programs. I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle. Nothing spectacular about my rectangle. It's just a rectangle. And it defaulted to a color of red, which of course I could change the fill. Now, as soon as I drew that rectangle, it appeared as a shape layer on my layers panel, or my timeline as well. So I can use my selection tool. I can pick it up. I can move it around. I can put it wherever. I can move it off canvas. I can put it anywhere I want. So I'm going to start it in the lower left-hand corner because we're going to animate it over time. Now you'll notice that there's a shape layer called Shape Layer 1. We can, just like in Photoshop, we could go in and we could rename that if we wanted to. We could also twirl it up. We can twirl it down to see the properties of it. And once we see the properties of it, we can also see that there is a content property and a transformation property. The transformation property is where I want to spend my time in the beginning, because this is where we're going to animate things over time. Now you'll notice, you'll probably see this just about for every object you bring in, whether it's video, Photoshop files, whatever. You'll see these 5 basic transformation properties. You may see more, but you'll usually see at least these 5. And the anchor point is that anchor point right here. That's where it is in the middle. The position, where it's positioned, the scale, rotation, and opacity. So what I want to do is I want to animate the position of this over time. I want it to move. So to do that, for any property that you want to happen over time, you click the stopwatch in front of it. If I didn't want it to happen over time, if I just want to make this rectangle, for example, bigger, I can just scale it and make it bigger or smaller. I can just change the size of it. That just changes the size of it. It doesn't make it do it over time. It just did it. But if I wanted to scale it over time, I would click the stopwatch first. So since I want to change the position over time, I'm going to click the position of it first. Now, the next thing is it knows where it is. It just locked in the coordinates for where it is. Right now it's 0 seconds. And I want to say by the time you get to, let's say around 3 seconds, I want you to move, actually, you know what? Back it up. Let's go to 2 seconds. By the time you get to 2 seconds, I want you to be at the top near the middle. So all I do, I don't have to worry about typing in the position. I can just pick up the object and move it. And that will put it up here. Now, it's weird because the anchor point's in a different spot, but that's okay. It's still picking up the rectangle and moving it. So if I go back in time, and then I press my space bar, which is always your play, space bar shows me, it renders it first, so it's not really in real time. And then once it's rendered, it should pretty much play, depending on your processor, depending on your playback speed, all of that, it should play or show it to you in real time. Now, that is my first animation. So I'm going to go to the 2-second mark. And then what I want to do is I want to continue animating. I've already locked in the, to do it over time. Now I want to just say, okay, you've reached the top. Let's go ahead now and pull you down. So over time, it's going to now, let me undo that because I didn't move the playhead. It would have just now, okay, let's say I had done that. What would it have done? It would have said, oh, you're changing the position of it at 2 seconds. So I'm going to start in the lower left-hand corner and then I'm just going to go straight across. That's not what I want to happen. I want to go up and then down. So it, from 0 to 2 seconds, go up. And then from 2 to 4 seconds, there we go, move the playhead. Now go down. There we are. So now we've got this animation. If we jump back to the beginning, hit our space bar, it goes up. And this is the path it's showing, which of course it will not show that path when it really exports the video. And then it goes down. And of course you can alter that path if you know what you're doing with the pen tool as well. All right, so that's our animation. Now we can keep going. That's just basic 101 animation. We can keep going because remember the rectangle itself has properties. If we twirl down the rectangle, it's got a fill property. And we can say, you know what, go back to the beginning in time. I want to animate that over time as well. So now when it gets to the 2-second mark, it was red. I want to change the fill color to kind of a white color. Click OK. And you know what? When it gets to the 4-second mark, I want to change the fill color again to, you guessed it, blue. Red, white, and blue. So now it will transition between red to white to blue over time. So if we jump back to the beginning, hit our space bar, it will transition in color, losing its red over time, and then down to blue over time. Now, of course, we could keep going. You get the idea. We could have it rotate over time. We could have it scale over time. We could have it change the opacity over time. We could have it change its position and go all over the place over time. You can keep changing properties and keep moving the playhead to wherever you want, to whatever you want to happen. That, in a nutshell, is how we animate in After Effects. That's your 101. I didn't know what I was doing. I took an object, I drew it on screen, and I made it move over time. I made it to do something over time. Now it's just building on this knowledge that we just got. Okay, so we kind of got a jump start on knowing what that is. We made something move. Now let's kick it up a notch. Now let's really do some real work. Okay, so I'm going to go back over to my project window. And in my project window, I now want to bring in something real. I want to bring in a video. Because 9 times out of 10, the reason it was, and by the way, the reason it was called After Effects is it was for creating animations after your finished video. In other words, you'd be in Premiere, you'd work on all your editing, you get your video edited, now you want to add in all the special effects to it. After Effects. Okay, so we want to bring in a video, whether the video is edited or not. In this case, it's not, but if it were edited, finished video, we could now bring it in and do After Effects over it. We could also, if you're working with Premiere, you can send the video from Premiere right into After Effects to animate over it. You can build an After Effects sequence or a composition right in Premiere and have it dynamically linked back and forth. I've shown that before. So just to get just so you know, you don't have to start with the video, export it from Premiere, and then bring it in After Effects. Premiere and After Effects talk directly to each other. Okay, but anyway, just say you're just pretending you're just working with After Effects alone. I'm going to go ahead and now I can say import under the file menu, and that will allow me to bring in whatever I want, and including a Premiere Pro project, or just files or multiple files. Or you can just double click on the project window to bring up that same window. In this case, I'm going to go to my Creative Cloud Files folder, and I'm going to go to a project that I was working on in one of my other videos from Premiere Clip. And in that is a media folder, and I think this is the one I want. Let's see. Nope, that's not the one I want. That's the one I want. Okay, so we'll bring in that auto show video. And again, the video just came into the project. I didn't tell it to do anything with the video yet. It's just sitting there. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to build a new composition. We're done with this sample composition. I want to build a brand new one based on this auto show video because this is our real video. This is what we're really going to be working on. So I'm going to go ahead and take this video, and I'm going to drag it down. Oops, I can pick it up there. There we go. Drag it down to the new composition button. And what that will do, if I actually drag it down to the right one, there we go. Drag it down to the new composition button. There we go. It will create a new composition based on that video. So that way, I could have just done it the way we showed before. I could go to composition, new composition, fill in all the parameters, but then I would have to know things like, well, how long is that video to make the composition that long? What size is that video to make the composition the right size? So by just dragging the video down to the new composition button, not the interpret footage button, but the new composition button, it will actually build a composition based on the video itself. So I know it's the right length, I know it's the right size, I know it's the right speed, I know it's the right everything. I don't have to think about it anymore. Okay, so now we've already covered 2, 3, or 4 of the 10 things people want to know how to do, but you're going to get more than 10 things, so let's keep going. The next thing we want to do is we want to spruce this up a little bit. We want to kind of make it like it's, maybe we're doing a newscast and we're covering the auto show. So let's pretend we're news anchors covering the auto show and we have our footage here. So it brought the video in, and I can twirl it down and get to those same properties. And what I want to do is I want to just control the size of it. I don't want the video taking up the entire window, because now I can play. I'm in After Effects. I can do what I want. So I'm going to go to position, and I'm just going to, by the way I'm changing this is you'll notice when you hover over these numbers, you get a little finger with arrows pointing left and right. That means if you click and hold, you can drag left or right to change the property. So I want to change the scale of this down. I just want to just drag it to the left to make it smaller. And when it will always do it from the center by default with After Effects. I'm just going to make this video smaller. Now, I can rotate the video, scale the video, change the position of it, change the opacity of it. I can do all of these properties either once or over time. So now I want to just pick up that video and move it, because we're going to off-center it here. And now, instead of it just playing on black, I would love to have it play on a different color. So one of the 10 things people want to know how to do is, how do I add what we would call in After Effects a solid or a background or something to the effect that my video or my animation could be seen on. So if I go up to my layer menu, I have the ability to do a new solid. When you bring up the new solid, it's going to bring up whatever default color it was on last. The beauty about this is you can also pick it up. You can tell it what color in the spectrum you want to use. You can also even use the eyedropper to sample colors that may already exist in your video project or your interface or anywhere else you want color. So if I want the red from the taillights, or if I want this nice purple here from the background of the video itself, I can do that, and then that will give me a new solid, and it will even name it medium gray purple solid. It is basing it on the color it grabbed. So that will give me my new solid, but you notice it covered up my video, and that's okay, because just like in layers in Photoshop, you can pick these things up and rearrange them. So I just move that layer, that solid layer, down below the video, just like I would have done in Photoshop. Okay, so now I've got my solid. It's the full length of the video playing in the background. I've got my my video, which is of course now in a corner playing. So if I were to just scrub through this, smooth the playhead, we would see the video playing in that window, and of course nothing else is happening, because nothing else is happening. We haven't done anything else yet. Now, of course, having a solid is part of After Effects, but I'm going to venture and guess that you may want something a little fancier than that solid. So let me turn the solid off for a second. Let me just hide it. Because not only do After Effects and Premiere talk to each other, but After Effects and Photoshop talk to each other as well. As a matter of fact, one of your 10 things, we can go up to our, how do I bring something in from Photoshop? Or in this case, we're going to do it two ways. We're going to let After Effects create the Photoshop file, put something on it, and it will already be here. And then we'll show a different way after that. So File, New, Photoshop file. Right there in the After Effects menu, create a brand new Photoshop file, but don't just create it, which by the way, I can tell it wherever I want to save it. So I'm going to call this AE background, or we'll call it, you know what? Let's call it AE Auto Show Background. So I'll know what that means a day from now. So now it'll create it as a Photoshop file. It will launch Photoshop if you didn't already have it open. It will make the canvas the exact size of your composition so that you're all set and ready to go. From here, you can do whatever you want. Whatever you want to be the background in Photoshop, or I'm sorry, in After Effects behind your video, do it. You want to put text in it. You want to put textures in it. You want to put a photograph in it. You want to do whatever you want. Build your Photoshop file. You want to drag another Photoshop file in here that's already done. Do it. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use, as a Creative Cloud member, I have access to extensions for Photoshop and all the products. So if you were to go under your window menu and you were to say browse extensions online, I've already done that. So I'm going to head over to my web browser, and I went and searched for Russell Brown's Adobe Paper Textures Pro. And I've already added this in. This would say add it to my add-ons. Once you've done that, Adobe Paper Textures Pro as an add-on. Now in Photoshop, I have the Texture Pro menu or the extension. So I went into my window menu, extensions, show me that extension. So now that it's here, I can have Photoshop or this extension build a nice background for me so that I don't have to think about how to design it or how to make it the right colors or whatever. So I can just click one and there it is, built, ready to go. I can, if I don't like that one, click a different one. Built, ready to go. I can delete one, turn one on, turn one off. There you go. So I kind of like that one. So let's throw the other one away. Let's save it. Let's close this Photoshop file. Let's head back to After Effects. And there it is, right here in After Effects, that Photoshop Auto Show PSD that we made. So I'm just going to drag it down and have that be my new background. And yes, never show me these warnings again. Okay, so now I've got my new background there, ready to go. So had I built anything else in Photoshop, it would be there. Which, speaking of building something in Photoshop, the next of your 10 things that we're going to show how to do is, that was just a solid. That was just kind of like just building a background that's a little bit fancier than a solid color. I want to now build something in Photoshop that I can actually animate and use. Now, normally when you see these newscasts and you see anything about the news, they have these animated lower thirds. They have these things going on in the background. So you don't just see the video, you kind of see wavy patterns and circles and little diagrams spinning around. Let's build one of those and let's animate it in After Effects. So let's go. Now, in this case, I'm not going to say, give me a new Photoshop file from After Effects, because what that does is it just brings in the Photoshop file as a object, as a layer. I want to bring it in with its layers. I want to be able to use those layers and animate them. I want to bring it in, as a matter of fact, as a composition. So let's head to Photoshop manually. I can put away the paper textures. And now let's go ahead and just create a new file. And I'm going to use the same preset. I'm going to just go to Film and Video. And I'm going to just go all the way down to my HDTV preset. And I'm just going to say that the background color is my background color. Okay, just make it burgundy, just so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so now I've got the same size screen for working in After Effects. Now quickly, this is not a Photoshop tutorial, so I'm going to blow through this pretty quick, but I'm just going to build some layers so that we can animate them in After Effects. So I'm going to use my shape tool. And with my shape tool, I've got it set for shape in the upper left-hand corner there. You can have that for pixels or paths. I'm going to use it for shapes right off the bat. And I'm just going to start dragging out a circle, but I'm going to hold down the Shift key so it's a perfect circle, and the Option or Alt key so it does it from the center from where I was started dragging. Okay, so there is my nice red stroked circle. Well, I don't want it to be red stroked. I actually want it to be kind of a white or light gray. And I also want it to be a lot thicker. So let's increase the point size. Okay, so now I've got that nice circle built, ready to go. And what I'm going to do now is simply duplicate it. I have it over here on the as ellipse 1. I'm just going to drag it down to the new layer icon to give me an ellipse 1 copy. And then I'm going to go ahead and scale that. So let's Command T or Control T for free transform. Start scaling it, hold down the Option key, and scale it from the center. Okay, great. Next thing we're going to do, let me check one thing real quick here. Yep, okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and duplicate it one more time. And same thing, we're going to go ahead and scale it. And start scaling it, Shift key, hold down the Option key so it does it from the center, or Alt key from the center. There we go. So now we've got our 3 circles that are exactly the same. Now again, because these are shapes currently, I can control their stroke. So I can make them thicker, thinner, whatever I want. So I'll go to this one now and do the same exact thing. Hang on a second there. Oops. select it. There we go. And let's go ahead and control its, I just don't want them all to be the same weight. That's why I'm changing the weight here. Okay, so now I've got 3 different circles, 3 different weights ready to go. And next thing I want to do is now, I don't want them to be shapes anymore. I just want it to have shapes first so they're easily controlled, scalable, vector, whole 9 yards. But now I'm ready for them to be pixels. So I'm going to go ahead and select all 3. Go to my layer menu, and I'm going to come down to rasterize. Just convert all of those layers into regular pixel layers. Because now what I can do layer by layer, we have the outer circle. So let's call it outer. And let's call this middle. And let's call this inner. So now we have our 3 circles that are all pixels. And now I want to do is I want to cut them out. So I'm just going to use my rectangular selection tool. And we're just going to go ahead and just draw a rectangle across the outer layer. Now, of course, it's doing across all 3, but I only have 1 selected. And just delete. That will cut that so it's not a circle anymore. It's just 2 half circles. Oops. Didn't mean to save it just yet. Deselect. Actually, don't deselect. What I can do now is transform that selection. Transform the selection and just simply rotate it. Like so. Lock in my transformation and grab the middle circle. And cut that one out. And transform our selection one more time. Not the pixels, the selection. And rotate it one more time. And if you think this is hard, folks, it really isn't. It's just a matter of making circles that are cut up. And lock in the transformation. And let's go ahead and delete those. Okay, so now we've got, if we deselect, we've got what used to be circles that are now half circles cut up in different places. Now I can go ahead and get rid of the background. I don't need it anymore. Actually, you know what? We'll keep it because we're going to turn it off in After Effects. Let's go ahead and just save this out. And we'll call it circles.psd. We'll save it out onto the desktop so I know where it is. And of course, we want to save it with layers. Okay, that was it. Build your thing in Photoshop is really what I'm trying to say. Build it with layers. Make whatever layers you want that you want to be able to animate separately. All right, so now we'll close this in Photoshop. We're done with Photoshop. Let's head back over to After Effects. And now let's bring that in. And here's the difference. When I double click to bring in that Photoshop file, I can bring it in as footage, which is just like the flat background. Or I can bring it in as a composition. But more importantly, I can bring it in as a composition that retains the layer sizes. This is very important if you're going to bring something in where in Photoshop you pulled it off the canvas. Like part of it's sticking off the canvas, you don't see it, but you want to be able to animate it. So if you bring it in just as a composition, it's going to crop to the size of the Photoshop file, and whatever's hanging off the edge will just be gone. So we want to say composition retains layer sizes. All right, we want, if there were any layer styles, we can either make them editable as layer styles in After Effects or just merge them. So I don't have any layer styles to worry about. All right, so now what that did is it brought it in, there are my circles, as a composition. And what I can now do is double click on that composition and go and mess with it. What I mean by that is I'm in that composition and I want to turn off the background right off the bat. Don't need it. Now I want to select all 3 of those layers. This is why we name layers, folks, so you know what they are when you bring them in. And I want to animate their rotation. Now, before I had to twirl down to see all the properties. Now it's time to get a little bit savvier with After Effects and know that each property has its own keyboard shortcut. So if I wanted to animate the position of those circles, I'd hit the letter P. If I want to animate the opacity of those circles, I'd hit the letter T for opacity. It's an old joke. If I wanted to animate the rotation of those layers, I'd hit the letter R. So I hit the letter R and rotation comes up. Now I want to just click the stopwatch. For one of them, it knows to rotate or animate the rotation of all of them. So now I can go in. Now this composition that it built is only 30 seconds by default, but you'll get the idea. I can go to the end of that 30 seconds, or I could have just changed the composition to be longer in the composition settings. And now I can start messing with the circles. So the outer circle, I want to rotate by 2 full revolutions in 30 seconds. So you can just say, rotate it twice clockwise. Now the middle one, I want to go the other way. And I want it to go the other way, I don't know how many times. Maybe, I don't know, that many. Whatever that works out to be. And the last one, or the inner one, I want to rotate faster. So 3 times, 3 point something. So now if we were to go back to the beginning and we were to play this, we have our 3 sets of 3 sets of half circles rotating in different directions at different speeds based on what I set in those properties. So that's all it is. Deciding what you want to do and then doing it. Now that we've done that, we've got this circles composition ready to go. Here's the magic of After Effects. We come back to our video. We can take that circles composition and drag it into this composition. We can put it wherever we want. So I can put it over the car, under the car, wherever I want. And it looks like I've got it under the car. Hang on. Yes, so let me turn the car off for a second. Grab the circles composition and simply move it. I kind of want it off to the side, under the car. And there we are. Oops, wrong one. Car. There we are. And so now if we were to play this, the car's moving, the circle's moving, everything's moving based on what we set up in the compositions for After Effects. So we took one Photoshop file with multiple layers, brought it in as a composition, animated the different pieces the way we want it, and used that composition in another composition. Nested compositions, another of your 10 things. Okay, so now that we've kind of got that going, you see how that works. I'm going to kick it up a notch, one more notch. Well, remember the background we built in Photoshop? This thing? Well, who says that has to sit still? And who says it has to be whatever size we brought it in at? Remember, this has its properties too. So if we bring up the properties for that, we can, first of all, scale it. Scale it. There we go. And, resolution withstanding. You got to remember that you're blowing this up bigger than it originally was built at. So you're increasing the size or pixelization because you're blowing it up. So if you're going to do this, you might want to keep that in mind when you're building the Photoshop file to actually be bigger so that you can bring it in and animate it over time. Now, all I want to do is I scaled it up, and now I'm just going to go ahead and move it in position over to the right. And what I want it to do over time is animate the position so that as the car is turning around and doing its thing, or we can even go to here where we stopped our other animation, that this is moving also. You can hold down your shift keys so you keep it perfectly straight. So now I've got an animated background. So if we, again, we hit play, we've got our circles turning, we've got our car turning, we've got our background moving all over time. That's how easy it is to work in After Effects. Think about it and just do it. Think about it and apply it over time. So next thing, last few things and we're done. One of your 10 things is, I'm sure people want to know, what about text? How do I animate text? Well, you could do that a couple of ways. You could have typed the text in the Photoshop file as a layer. Just bring it in and animate it. That way, you're in your comfortable environment for typing. You can also do it here in After Effects because After Effects has a type tool. Now, the one thing I will caution you on is when you're building these compositions and layers and everything, always remember, where do you want your new thing you're about to do to start? Because right now, remember, I was messing around with this, so I'm at about 6 seconds. If I were to create a text frame now or text now, it's going to start at 6 seconds. So if I want it to start at the beginning, always remember to bring your playhead back to the beginning of wherever you want this new thing you're about to do to start. Okay, so we've got that. back to the beginning, we grab our type tool. There's our type tool, and we go ahead and we just click anywhere we want, and we can start typing. And of course, it's going to be in whatever weird font I was in last. Auto show. Okay, so we got auto show. Let's go ahead and change that font to something better. Oh, it's in my handwriting font. All right, let's change it to, oh, there was a cool font. I thought it would work out great for this. And of course, oh yeah, there it is. I'm forgetting the name of it. Well, we'll just do impact for now. Something nice and thick. And again, we can change the size of it, so we can scale this down. And right here, I'm just on the character panel. I'm just doing the same thing. I'm using the scrubby hand here, and I'm just scrubbing this size down. Now, of course, I can pick it up. I can put it wherever I want. I can continue, oops, zoomed in by mistake there, but that's okay. I can go ahead and zoom it down further. I could change the color of it, change the font of it. Here's your color, here's your stroke. You can change whatever you want to change about it, but actually, I do want to change the color. So I'm going to go ahead, grab my eyedropper tool, and again, I get the same ability to pick colors that are anywhere in my interface, any color I want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and use kind of maybe that light blue. Let's see what that looks like. Horrible at this. That's okay though. Doesn't match, doesn't work. Picking colors, hard thing for me. All right, we'll use that so because it's contrasty enough, it stands out. All right, so now the text doesn't do anything. It just sits there while the whole thing is playing in the background. Well, I want it to do something. I want it to fade up over time. So let's twirl up and twirl down, or we just hit the letter, we're on the auto show layer, we just hit the letter T for opacity. And now that we got the opacity here, we're going to say that we want this to happen over time. So first thing, over time, and I want to start out at nothing. So don't be there yet. In other words, start out at 0. I will fade you up when I'm ready. So again, this is working in time. So let's say that maybe 5 seconds into this, we want, and by the way, whenever you want, you can just click if you want to jump to a specific spot. So I can go 5 seconds into this and be right at 5 seconds. And I want to say that I want this to now be 100%. Okay, so we went from nothing, and it will, over 5 seconds, fade up to 100%. Now that we're at 100%, or we will be, and by the way, notice my nice circle spinning and everything working perfectly. Okay, so now that we're at our 5 seconds, and now we're at 100%, and it will just stay at 100% until we tell it otherwise, I want to add an effect. This is probably, I think, number 9 in your 10 things. I've lost track. But anyway, it's called After Effects for a reason. What are the effects? What can I do? There are hundreds of effects in After Effects, and no one video is going to cover them all. We could spend months covering each effect in detail. So if you go up to your effect menu, you will see dozens of categories with literally hundreds of effects. Now, all the ones that say FX Factory, these are third-party ones I downloaded. But if you take out those and you just concentrate on the ones that are built in, there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of effects that you can do. So how are you ever going to know what they do, and how are you going to know which one it is and which one you want, and so forth and so on? Well, if you go to your Effects and Presets panel, you can, let's see if I can do it here. You can browse presets. And what that will do is that will bring up Adobe Bridge, provided you've installed Adobe Bridge. It is a separate install now in Creative Cloud. And it will let you preview them. It will let you see what they all do. Since I kind of come from the Photoshop world, there's one effect I'm assuming is here because it's in Photoshop, and a lot of the same ones that are in Photoshop are here. Lens flare. I would love to create a lens flare effect on that text. So I have no idea where it is in these categories. So I never have to think about it, because all I have to do is, as long as I know the name of it, I can just start typing lens, and I can find lens flare. So it's under the generate category, by the way. So now, how do I apply this lens flare to my text versus the car versus the circles versus the background? All I would do is just simply drag the lens flare. As I drag it over each object, you notice it kind of highlights what it would do it on. Or I could drag it right onto the layer itself. But I want to drag it onto the auto show. And there is my lens. And by the way, I get a new category under my twirl down called effects with all the lens flare effects that I can do. And I also get them now in the effects control or the effect controls, because that panel popped up because I'm now using at least one effect in this composition. So if I add on multiple effects, they will be listed there. So I can control it either from down here in the layers panel or up here in the effect controls. Now that I've got the effects controls up and I can see all of the different things that I can do, well, I don't know yet which one I want to animate. Well, guess what? Here's another tip. If you put a stopwatch on each one of these and you don't decide to animate it, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Nothing will hurt you if you don't decide to animate something. So you can have something be turned on that you're going to do it over time and not actually do it over time, and it will just sit there. But you've set yourself up for success that if you decide later that I want to change the lens type, which I did earlier, and I forgot to turn that one on, then I can just do it. So I can be creative along the way and have it set up to do it over time. Okay, so what I want to animate for sure is the lens center, which I don't even know where it is. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I found the lens center, and I want to pick it up. And as I drag that over, you can see what it would do to my text manually. I can animate it. Oh, cool. Okay. Or backwards, or loop-de-loop, or whatever you want. And again, you're seeing those numbers change in the effects controls as I'm dragging this around. Well, I want it to start from the left, off the text. So right there. And it's already set to animate this over time. And let's see, we're at 5 seconds. Let's say that we want it to take 2 seconds. Auto show. Yeah, 2-3 seconds at the most. So we just scroll over to maybe 7 seconds or thereabouts. And now we just change the center point to be on the other side. And that's it. So if we were to go back in time, let's go back to here, and we were to hit play on this. And by the way, I've been hitting play with the space bar. You also have your RAM preview and all your options here. So if I hit play here, it is saying that it's not in real time because it's having to build those frames in memory. So After Effects, the more RAM you have, the more processor you have, the happier After Effects will be. But you can see my lens flare kind of working across there. And now if I were to go back, we can play it back in more real time. There we go. Pretty cool. So there you have it, folks. You have your 10 things. You have your 9 things. You have one more to go, but you have 9 things to get you started with After Effects. What could possibly be left, right? Well, there are lots of things left. We can talk about cameras. We can talk about 3D. We can talk about changing your view, wrapping it around your video. There are lots of things we can be doing in After Effects, and maybe we'll do follow-up videos to show some of those things. But now that you've got the basics on just, you know how to bring things in, you know how to add keyframes to them, you know how to tell it to do it over time. One more just as a tip, and then I'll show you your 10th thing, is I've been showing all of this at half, or actually auto resolution. You can choose based on, well, auto, let me explain what all of this is. Quarter, third, half, and full. These are your presets. So you can say quarter resolution means it doesn't look as good, but it plays back in more real time. So it's got to render it again because I changed it. And let's let it do it. Okay, almost. Good. Okay, so now we go back and we play that back at quarter resolution. And at quarter resolution, what it's saying is I'm not going to use as much processor power to show you what the animation looks like, but I'm not going to make it look as good either. Now, of course, if we jump up to half resolution, It looks a lot sharper. It looks better. And this is all in your just working with your animation. This has nothing to do with the final output. Your final output will be full resolution, hands down. But what this is saying is, I'm not going to bog down your computer trying to show you something at full resolution all the time when you're just trying to test the way the animation looks, or at least the way it worked. Meaning my circles are moving. I know they're going to be nice and crisp in the final video. I don't need them to be nice and crisp just to know that they worked. Okay, so that's what these resolutions mean. And auto is just based on the speed that After Effects is seen from the amount of RAM you have, what you're doing, your processors, your GPU, so forth and so on. So it's trying to do what it thinks you should do, and you can go ahead and change that to whatever you want. All right, your 10th thing. You're done. Meaning, let's say this was your final piece and you're ready to send it out. You're ready to leave After Effects. Well, what we get out of After Effects is typically a video. Meaning you brought a video in or you brought some things in and now you want to make a video to go out. Maybe it's a video for social media. Maybe it's like I said here where you took a video, you shot, and you want to do some cool things around it. Or maybe it's just an animation of graphics that you want to put on your Instagram account. Whatever it is. You can now take this and then make it real, make it a video. So we go up to our composition menu and we have two choices. We have the as long as I can remember, add to render queue. This is the built-in After Effects render queue that's been here for as long as I can remember, 20 years or more. And then you have the add to Adobe Media Encoder. So I'm going to, as a newbie, I'm going to tell you to use the add to Adobe Media Encoder because that's probably going to make more sense to you. If you're an After Effects Pro, you know there's some other things you can do in the render queue, especially if you're going to use this as a composite video with an alpha channel on top of something else. You know, there's all kinds of other things you might do there. But for a newbie that just wants to come in, animate something, get it out as a video, add it to the Adobe Media Encoder. Now, when I do that, if you haven't launched the Media Encoder, it will launch it in the background. And if I go to the Media Encoder now, it's doing its thing, so it's taking a second here. Eventually that project will pop up here. It's kind of building the project to put it here, so it takes a few seconds to do that. But once it's here, then what you will be able to do is you'll be able to choose your presets of what you want this to go out as. So in other words, and there it just popped in. So if I want to send this over to my last preset I used was for the iPad, iPhones, so forth and so on, make a video that's compatible with those devices, then it will do it. If I want to go out to an Android device or a Kindle device or an Apple TV or TiVo or GoPro, whatever I want to output this for, more importantly for me, YouTube, Vimeo, so forth and so on, then I would just choose the preset. And of course I can duplicate this in the Media Encoder and make multiple ones for the different needs that I have. And by the way, if you're just unsure, you just have no idea what to do, then what you could do is, I would say your safest bet is, I kind of like the YouTube preset. It's going to keep it in HD. It's going to make it H.264, MP4, which is going to be compatible with most things. If you know what device you're targeting, then just go ahead and target that device. But if you're trying to look for something generic that'll work probably, pretty much anywhere, for example, there isn't one here for Facebook, but the YouTube one would work on Facebook. So just use the YouTube one as a default if you don't know what you want. If you know what you want, of course, go ahead and choose the one you want, and that's it. Once you export the video and tell it where you want it to be saved, I can tell it, for example, to save it out onto my desktop. And give it a nice name, auto show, final, and it's going to make it an MP4 file. And then of course I can choose whatever preset I want from whatever devices that are here to use. And once I start this, click the start button, it will then render from After Effects directly to the Media Encoder and then out to my movie that I can then post online and do whatever else I want to do with it. So that's it. That's how to get started. The video you've been asking for. It's a lot of information, I know, but I tried to go as fast as I could, but still be explaining the things you need to know about how to use After Effects. And I hope you now can get started without being intimidated, and I hope you create some cool things. I'd love to see them. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.